So we'll go through this example. I said there is a Lab1 REST API, right? So we have seen there is a user interface. User interface has few methods, right? And there is a class which implements all those methods. It's @ service. And if you observe here, so there is a populate dummy users. This is where we are storing the data, right? It is actually hash. It's a list, array list. Actually, we are storing it as an array list. Okay, but we can extend this example for the database also. If you want to integrate with the database, you can do it, right? Then there is a controller. If you observe, there is a REST API controller. In the REST API controller, so at a class level, you can see @ REST controller. Then there is a request mapping /API. Right? This we already discussed, right? So if you want to call any path /user, it must come with /API /user. Similarly, /API /user /ID. Okay, so at a class level, when you give request mapping, here we cannot define post or anything. It would be always what actually it is always get only. At a class level, you just write /API, then the remaining. Okay. Now, please mute it, all of you. All of you, please mute. Okay. So if you look at this, when we are doing request mapping get, right, for list of users, here I said, here we are going to call user service.find all users, right? User service.find all users. This is going to return list of users. But we are using response entity here. We are using response entity. This is one thing you need to focus. This response entity extension of HTTP entity, right? Response entity is an extension of HTTP entity. But if I click HTTP entity, then what is mentioned here? HTTP requests a response entity consisting of headers and body. Especially in the REST API development, that not only body, the headers plays a major role. Headers and status code. Very important thing is status code is very important. We should not give for everything. We should not go just say 200 because 200 is okay, but that is not the best status code for all the operations, right? Suppose whenever we use post, right? Post is always insert. Post is nothing but inserting the record. Then instead of 200, we should return 201. It makes sense because 201 status code is always for insertion, right? If there is no content, you see, if there is no content, then there is a status code for no content. Actually, no content. What is the status code? 204 is the no content. Suppose we are expecting some response. When you call some REST endpoint, some response is expected. No response is coming. Assume that the service was developed in such a way that it is not going to return anything. Example. Okay, for example, you do delete operation, right? Delete operation, once it is successful, you may not get any response. The client may not get response. But if it comes with a 200 okay, the client will get confused. Okay, 200 okay, successful, but I'm not getting response whether the response is there or not. So if you return 204, so it makes very clear for the client saying that, okay, 204 means no content. Okay, so response entity which extends HTTP entity, entity along with the body provides headers. We can also write some headers, even custom headers or default headers can be used. But response entity provides one more call, status codes. Here, if I put more mouse over here, you can see it not only it extension of HTTP and adds HTTP status. So that is the reason we are using response entity, which is part of Spring Framework. You see, a response entity comes under where here. You see here, there is a headers we have defined. Okay, so where we have defined REST control response entity, which is part of Spring Framework, HTTP, right? Great. Now, once we make this call, user service.find all users, then we are checking if it is empty. If it is empty, return response entity status is no content. If there is no data, then it is going to return 204. If there is a data, then we are returning here, return new response entity, list of users, comma, status okay. Here what we are doing, we are returning users in the body. Response body, users will come. Status will come as okay, 200. Okay, so This method is all about just make a call to the service. If the data is available, data is not available, return no content. If data is available, return the data along with the status code. Okay. So this is slash user means what, which is going to return all the users. Suppose if you observe here, slash user slash ID. We already discussed about slash user slash ID means what? It is going to return the content of a particular user. Okay. And here also we are using get mapping because both are get. But how to differentiate? Both are get, but how do you differentiate? If slash user get means this will get executed. Slash user slash ID with get means this will get executed. Right? That is how we can differentiate, right? Because the endpoints are different. This is just slash user, but here slash user slash ID. Now, whatever we pass slash ID here, so slash user slash ID we are passing, that comes as path variable. That means in the real time, what we do, we say slash user slash 101 example. We are passing the user ID. That means what? That 101, we are storing it as a path variable. That is coming as a path variable. We are storing into this ID, long ID, right? This is very important. There is a path variable. There is a request parameters. Request parameters always comes with that question mark. Okay. So this ID, whatever you sending, that we are storing here. Then here you see the logic. We are calling user service find by ID of that ID. So in the user service, find by ID we are given, right? So if you observe here, there is a find by ID of that ID. So it is going to return either if that user, if ID is present, that user content will be written. Otherwise, it is going to return null. So what is the logic written here? If it is null, if user equal to null, then we are just giving one user with ID is not found, response entity. This is the logger actually, see. But response entity, we are giving response back to the client with a custom error type. This custom error type is just here. It is just one class, that's it. We are just using this class to store some error message, right? Okay, just we are storing for some error message, right? Then if I go back here, we just mentioned response entity, and this will go in body. If I put mouse over here, you can see there is a body and status. Actually, response entity we can send body, status, headers also, right? But currently we are not sending any headers here. So in the body, it says user with that ID is not found, status is not found. That means we'll get 404, right? If I put mouse over here, 404 is not found. If the content is there, if that ID is present, then we are returning that user with status OK. So if I put OK is 200 status, right? So this is how we can retrieve all users. We can retrieve a single user. In the all users, if there is no data, it says no content. If data is there, it returns with the data with status OK, right? Similarly, we can try this, right? So now let us try this with, we will try this with Postman, okay? All of you just open the Postman, select localhost 8080 /API /API/ for example, user, right? But you check it in the code. If you see, we are using /API /user, fine. But in YAML file, if you look at application.yaml file, there is context path /rest is given. This is what you have to observe. So now what is the URL? What is the endpoint? Localhost 8080 /rest /API /user. So that we need to try here. So /rest /API /user, then try with send. I think I have not started. That is one interesting thing. I have not started here. So let me go back to here. Right click the application, run as Spring Boot. Okay, so once it is started, go back to the Postman once again, say send. Now see, I got the output, right? Now please observe this. So I got all the users, right? Similarly, if I want to retrieve with a particular ID, say here you can see ID 1, 2, 3. So let me try with user/1, say send, then I got the particular user ID. So all of you please try this. Suppose I am trying with an ID which is not present. Suppose let me try with 6, user ID 6 is not present, right? When I say send, automatically you can see an error message, user with ID 6 is not found. Similarly, status code you can see 404 not found. This is important because in our code, what we have done actually, if you see the code here, if that user ID is not present, we said if it is not present, then we said not found. So it has to return a message user with ID is not found with the status code not found. Actually. So this is where we are getting 404. So the status codes are very important. So to create a new user, to create a new user, so what is written here? See, there's a create user one method. You can see it. Request mapping method is post because we discussed to create a new user, we have to use post. Any resource you want to insert, then we have to give post, right? Then in the method, if you observe, there are 2 arguments are coming. One is user, right? Second one is UC builder. See, user is request body, whatever comes that we are storing into user object. Then there is a URI component builder, UC builder. This URI component builder is part of Spring Framework, actually, right? The framework is provides this actually. Part of Spring Framework web.util, we have the URI component builder. Okay, we will discuss what is the purpose of this. Okay, so second argument is this. First argument is request body, right? Then whatever user we are sending, because whenever we use post request, right? Post request, what happens in the body, we have to send some content, right? For example, we are inserting new user, that user details you have to pass it. Then whatever you pass here, that will be stored in the user object. Okay. Now we are checking here. If user service dot is user exists of that user, whatever user is that we are trying, whether that user is already exists. Okay. So in the code you see here, in the service, you can observe what is written. If user exists, right? We are checking with the last, we are trying with find by name. That means if the 2 names are same, then we are going to return here. If 2 names are same, it says it's already exists. HTTP status is conflict. We are going to return HTTP status conflict. Okay. So whenever you see error here, then we will put modes over here. Okay, surprise. Okay, this is okay. Leave it. Okay, no issue. Okay. Now, if you observe here, we are going to return here. If the user already exists, a user with that name already exists, and we are giving status code as conflict. So conflict is 409. You can see status code 409, right? So we'll discuss more on this post. I'll come back to this because post by default post method is non-idempotent. Post method is non-idempotent. So we will discuss what is idempotent. I'll come back to you, right? Then if the user not exists, if that user doesn't exist, then we are saving the user service dot save user of that user. So it goes to save user method. In the save user method, what we are trying here, we are incrementing the ID. We are setting the ID and that user is added to list, right? We have the list is where we are adding it. Now, if I go back here, we have to give the response back to the client, right? So we added new user. We have to give response back to the client, right? In the response, what we are doing, HTTP headers equal new HTTP headers. Here we are creating some headers here because I told you response entity which extends HTTP entity and provides headers, body, and status code. In the headers, what we are returning, headers.set location, UC builder.path. So UC builder we are getting here. See, this UC builder object is coming here. This is injected by the framework. If you ask me, we have not mentioned @auto_void, how this dependency injection is happening. Once you define this request mapping with post, and if there is an argument with URI component builder, automatically Spring is going to pass the base URL of this particular endpoint, right? So what is the base URL for this? localhost 8080 slash rest, because in the application property, application.yaml, we are given rest. So the base URL is localhost 8080 slash rest. So that will automatically comes here actually. So that is what you have to understand. So what is written here? Headers.set location, UC builder dot path slash API slash user slash ID. So we are inserting new user. Here we are inserting new user. When it calls save user, their ID will be generated. So that ID we are adding here. So it becomes localhost 8080 slash rest slash API slash user slash ID. You got it. That base URL is coming from UC builder. Then this ID, we have to substitute value, right? We are using build and expand user.getID, then to URI. So this is going to create one URI for the new resource. So simple example is when a client try to insert a new resource, right? For example, if I'm adding new user, at a later time, I am interested to retrieve that user, right? When I'm retrieving the user, I should know what is the ID I have to retrieve it, because the IDs are generated by the system, right? ID is generated by the service. Later on, client want to retrieve it, client must know what is the URL to retrieve that ID. That information we are passing, say, return new response entity, we are passing headers, right? This location we are passing in the headers, then status code is created. If I put mouse over created, you see it says 201 created. Even we can give OK here, but when you give OK, this is the post request, client will think, okay, 200 is okay, fine, but is it inserted or not? Right? That ambiguity will be there, right? Instead of that, we are telling created. So we are giving an appropriate status code saying that it is 201 insert, right? Now let us see, all of you just observe this. If I go here, let me try with first, I will try with user 1 with a get request. I got this user, right? Now what I'll do is I'll take this particular thing. Okay. Let me create post request here, post request with localhost 8080 REST API slash user, right? We are trying to insert new user, I'll say slash user. Then in the body raw JSON, I'll give body raw JSON. Here I'm sending, for example, I'm just using this as a template. I'm just using a template. I'll send, for example, Rushi or Ramana. I just mentioned Ramana Rao something. I'll just mention age. Then I'll give some salary, 90,000 something. Now I'm trying to add a new user, right? So that is why I'm using this endpoint with post request. In the body JSON, I'm passing the JSON value. But we should not mention ID here, because when the client is sending some data, client will not create an ID, right? ID will be created by the service. Now, if I say send here, you see this, when I say send here, automatically 201 created. I got the response 201 created. Up to this is fine, right? New record is inserted. Fine, absolutely fine. Now, client want to retrieve this. As a client, okay, my record I want to retrieve, Ramana Rao I want to retrieve. So what is the endpoint for that? Because client doesn't know the ID, right? But in the response header, this response has come from service, right? In the response headers, there is a location. You see a location 8080 /stress /API /user/5. This is what we did there, right? We use URI component builder to take the base path and added the remaining path, right? Now client knows that, okay, if I want to get this resource, I should use this endpoint, right? So let me take this endpoint, open another tab, place this, and say get, and say send. So I'm getting ID is 5, name is Ramana Rao, age, salary. That means newly inserted record, we are able to retrieve it. Now, so when I say get, if I'm using get user /5 send, so I'm getting the response in JSON, right? JSON response is coming. Actually, there is, when the client is, when you're trying to retrieve data, right, using get, there is one header called in the headers, request headers. You have to understand this is request headers, this is the response, whatever comes here, response. In the request header, there is one accept header. See, I'll give accept header application / JSON. Even if this header is not given, the default in Postman is application / JSON. See here, with this, when I say send here, the response has come in JSON. This is super. Even if this header is not there also, we are getting the response in JSON, right? But if I give this header, instead of JSON, I'll just mention XML here. I want the response in XML. Like this is the option to the client. Client can mention the accept header. Accept header means now client is telling the service. See, client says, I am expecting the response in XML format or in JSON format, right? Suppose if I say send, you see it, we got the response in XML format. Previously, we got in JSON, now we got in XML. Similarly, I will take this syntax example, okay? I'll take just this syntax. I'll go to post. I will add one new user with XML. See, a new user with XML. Okay, ID I will remove it. Okay, just I'll mention something Venkat. Okay, some age I'll give. Okay, some amount salary, right? Now see here I'm sending XML. Right, as a post request, the body contains XML. Then in the header, there is one header called content type. Default is once again application / JSON is the default, but we have selected here XML automatically here. Even if you are not given also hidden, if I open the hidden one, you see there is a content type XML, right? So because this is provided by Postman. Otherwise, you need to manually type here. We have to give header content type XML, right? So the content type header. Okay, let me do one thing. I'll just hide it. I'll just give content type XML. So what is the meaning of this header is the body content is XML. If I give content type JSON means the body I should give JSON. Okay. So if I say send here, you see send, automatically the status is 201 created. I got the response. If I go to headers, location, I got a new user, right? So new user got inserted. So you need to understand two headers you have to understand. One is accept header, which is normally used with get. While retrieving, we say accept header. Accept header always says the response should be of so-and-so media type, XML or JSON. Then there is one more header called content type. These two headers are set in the client side. They're part of request headers. Content type means, especially when you're doing post request and put request. Post and put, what we will do, even put also, we are going to send some data content, right? Content always goes in body, right? So this header says content type. The body content is of so-and-so type. Is it JSON or XML, right? Sometimes the post request when you're doing, we may send some content as well as we may expect some response also. Some services, what happens, we send some data. Similarly, we expect some response. Example, after inserting this, the response I want to get the inserted data. Instead of sending into headers, right? Instead of sending headers, the location. So let us return the entire data here, right? In that case, the post request along with the content type also uses accept header, right? Even client here, there's an accept header. So the client says, the response I'm expecting in application / XML, right? So application / XML, right? But normally this content type we don't use with get. Get, you cannot send anything in body actually. Get is always accept. But there is a post or put, what we can do is the body contains so-and-so content and the response I'm expecting in so-and-so. These two headers are very important. See, whenever we are using XML, right, we are trying to retrieve with an XML. Very important thing is in the pom.xml file, you see a pom.xml, there is one more dependence. Okay, it is referring to parent pom. I'll go to dependency hierarchy. If you observe here, there is one JSON data format XML. This dependency is required if you want to deal with XML media type. If you are trying with JSON, not required, because Spring Boot Starter Web, say Spring Boot Starter Web, internal uses Spring Boot Starter Web, okay? JSON is coming, okay? Okay, I'll just go back here, close it. Okay, I'll open this pom.xml. Here you see, the Spring Boot Starter Web uses JSON. But if you want to use XML, then we need to explicitly mention JSON data format XML. This dependency is mandatory. Spring Boot Starter Web only includes JSON. The reason is most of the RESTful web services, we go ahead with JSON. Along with the JSON, unless if you adding XML would be a performance overhead, right? Why to load too many classes? That's why we need to explicitly define it, right? This is one area you need to focus. Anytime, Ramana, I have created one web project using Spring Boot Starter Web, and I am trying to retrieve the data with an XML, I am not able to do it because this dependency is missing. And the last point is, if I go to this method, right, anything, any get mapping or post mapping, anything. For example, if I go to post mapping, right, request mapping, method is post here, right? If I say comma, control space, you will see there are few more options will come here. So what are the options here? There is a produces, there is a consumes. We can also define two more arguments here, produces, consumes. Produces, if I give produces means, similarly, comma, consumes, right? Produces means, the meaning of this is, this particular service can produce the response. We are not given anything, actually. Here we are not given anything. We can mention in the braces. We are not given. So what is the meaning of this? This particular thing produces both JSON and XML. By default, it supports both media types, JSON and XML. Right? So the service response can come in both XML and JSON. Consumes. The service request can come in JSON or XML. These are very important. Okay. By default in Spring, these two are enabled. By default, both XML and JSON support. But if you want only XML, then in the braces, what you can do, you can just mention application slash XML, right? Here we are just telling this will only give response XML. Once you explicitly mention this, even if you add JSON, if the client says, I want JSON, it won't come actually. Because service, first you have to configure in the service, we have to mention this service produces what media types, this service consumes what media types. So produces is, this is giving response back. Consumes means it is getting a request, right? So if you see the difference here, there is a client, you can observe here, there is a client and service, right? The provider and consumer. In the client, when you say accept header, client says accept. In the service, it should be produces. This is very important. Similarly, client says content type. Then here it should be consumes. Okay, client says the response I'm expecting in so and so format. Service has to say yes, the response is produced in so and so media type. Client says the request is of type so and so content type. Then service says yes, I can consume the media types like XML or JSON, right? These are very important. Here you can observe there are two message headers, accept content type. So accept and content type are both headers sent from a client, for example, browser or your postman to a service. Accept is a way, it is a way for a client to specify the media type of the response content is expecting. Content type is a way to specify the media type of request being sent from the client to the server or service, anything, right? So normally what happens, we use text/XML or application/JSON, right? This is known as content negotiation pattern, right? Very interesting. So this itself is one RESTful pattern, actually. Content negotiation. That means client is negotiating with the service saying that I want the response in so-and-so format. I am sending the request with a so-and-so format. So this is one of the useful RESTful pattern, content negotiation. Now let us try with updating the user resource, right? So here the request method is given as put. So we are trying to update user/id with put, right? That means what is the request will come in the Postman. Postman, so what I'll do is I'll take some user. Suppose I'll take the user 1, right? Let me take this user 1 and make it post. We'll have one more put. Let me use put. So in the body raw, I'll have this value. Then what is the URL? This is the URL, right? So see here, we are using put rest/API/user/1. Then in the body, it is for example, here I'm using XML, right? I am using XML I've taken. Then maybe I'll put XML here. Body is XML. Then age, I'll just mention, for example, 40. Then when I say send here, what will happen here? It goes to this request, user/1 put, right? And whatever we are sending in the body, say whatever we are sending in the body, so that comes to, so that body comes to where actually here. Say request body. This /id comes as a path variable, but whatever is coming in the body that comes as a request body, we are storing user object, right? Automatically, the serialization will be marshalling, demarshalling will be automatically happens here. So there, here we are sending XML, but here it is coming as a user object. That means what is happening behind the scenes? If you see the XML binding, right? JAXB is happening here, converting from XML to Java object, right? Similarly, when you're giving response back to the client, once again from the Java object to XML, right? That is how the marshalling, unmarshalling is happening here. Serialization, deserialization is happening, right? So this is what behind the scenes it is happening, right? Now, if you come back here, when you say pass the request body, right? We are checking whether that ID is there or not. In the user service, find by ID, that ID is there or not, right? If it is not there, then what happens? It says unable to update user with ID is not found, actually, right? Otherwise, we are just updating the name, age, and salary. Then we are using user service.update user, and the status, we are returning the response entity with that user status code is okay, right? So let me go back to here and say send. You see what is output I'm getting here? 200 okay. I got that updated record here. So this updated record is coming because here we have done what is written here. This is going to return, say here response entity, we are going to return the user. Suppose if I'm not returning the user, only I'm returning the status, then status will come out. Suppose if I go back to create user, here we are not returning the body, we are just returning the headers and status. But in the put, we are returning the body and the status, both we are returning, right? This is how we can update the user, right? Similarly, if you want to delete any user, right? You want to delete all the users, just say /user with the delete. All the users will get deleted. Okay. If you want to delete a particular user, then give the user ID. So if I go back here, let me take this URL in another tab. Okay. I'll say delete. Let me delete this user, say send. So user got deleted. It says 204 no content. 204 no content. Okay. So if I try to retrieve it, see, I'm trying to retrieve this send. It says 404 not found because it got deleted. So for delete operation, we are not getting any content. Then the status code better to give 204. Anytime the content is not coming, right? Any request when you're sending, if there is no content in the response, we have to say 204 rather than giving 200, right? So where this is mentioned in the code you see here, when you say delete users, here we are telling response entity status is no content. Similarly, I can say delete all users. If you want to delete all users, let me say delete here without user ID. When I say send, all users are deleted, 204 no content. Once again, I'll try to retrieve any user. Maybe try to retrieve 2 also. It says that user is not found, ID is not found, 404 not found.